The Golden State Warriors just made a decision that's going to haunt them for the next decade. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say this could be the moment we look back on as the official end of an era. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal is going to shake up everything you thought you knew about this team's direction. And trust me, you're going to want to hear every single word of this. Hey Dub Nation, welcome back to Warriors News Fan Report, your number one source for all the latest updates, insider rumors, and in-depth analysis of our beloved Golden State Warriors. I'm your host, and today we're breaking down a story that's been developing behind the scenes for months, a situation that's finally reached its breaking point, and a trade scenario that's about to become reality whether Warriors fans are ready for it or not. Before we dive into the specifics, I need you to understand the full context of what's been happening in the Bay Area, because this isn't just about one player or one decision. This is about the identity crisis that's been plaguing this organization all season long. Let me start by asking you a question that I've been wrestling with myself. When you watch the Warriors play this season, what do you see? Do you see a championship contender that's one piece away from competing with the Celtics and Nuggets? Or do you see a team that's desperately trying to recapture magic that might already be gone, clinging to the past while the future slips through their fingers? I think most honest Warriors fans would admit it's closer to the latter, and that's a painful thing to acknowledge when you've spent the last decade watching the most dominant dynasty in modern NBA history. But here's the reality. Stephen Curry is 37 years old. Draymond Green has lost a step, and the supporting cast around them is either too old or too young to consistently compete at the highest level. The Warriors are stuck in basketball purgatory. Not bad enough to rebuild, but not good enough to seriously contend. And that's the most dangerous place for any franchise to be. The record tells part of the story. Golden State is hovering around 500, winning some games they shouldn't, and losing games they absolutely have to have. The offense still has moments of brilliance when Curry gets hot and the ball movement clicks, but those stretches are becoming less frequent and less sustainable. The defense has been inconsistent at best, getting torched by athletic wings and struggling to protect the rim against teams that attack the paint aggressively. Steve Kerr has been experimenting with different lineup combinations all season, searching for something that works, trying to find the right balance between veteran leadership and young energy. And that brings us to the player at the center of this entire controversy. The young forward, who is supposed to be the bridge between the Warriors' championship past and their competitive future. Jonathan Kuminga entered this season with legitimate expectations of taking a significant leap forward in his development. He's 23 years old. He's got elite athleticism. He can defend multiple positions when locked in. And he's shown flashes of being a legitimate two-way player who could anchor this team for the next decade. The Warriors started the season with Kuminga back in the starting lineup, seemingly committing to him as a core piece moving forward. There was optimism that this would finally be the year where everything clicked, where Kuminga transformed from a promising prospect into a consistent contributor who could carry some of the offensive burden and provide the defensive versatility that Golden State desperately need. For the first few weeks, it looked like that development might actually be happening. But then the wheels started coming off. The Warriors hit a rough patch. Losses started piling up. And Steve Kerr did what Steve Kerr always does when things aren't working. He started tinkering with the rotation. And guess who found himself back on the bench? Jonathan Kuminga, once again demoted from the starting lineup, once again being asked to accept a reduced role, once again feeling like he's being made the scapegoat for problems that go far beyond his individual performance. Now, I want to be clear about something here, because this is important. Kuminga isn't playing perfect basketball. He has stretches where his decision-making is questionable, where his shot selection makes you want to pull your hair out, where his defensive intensity wanes. But here's the thing. He's 23 years old. He's supposed to be inconsistent. That's part of the development process for young players, especially ones who are being asked to play significant roles on teams with championship expectations. The bigger issue is that the Warriors seem fundamentally confused about what they want Kuminga to be. Do they want him to be an aggressive scorer who attacks the rim and creates his own shot? Or do they want him to be a complementary piece who fits into the system, moves the ball, and doesn't disrupt the flow? Do they want him to be a primary defender who guards the opponent's best player every night? Or do they want him to conserve energy on that end so he can be more effective offensively? The mixed messages have been consistent throughout Kuminga's time in Golden State, and it's starting to feel like the organization doesn't actually know how to maximize his talents. That's a coaching problem and a developmental problem, not a player problem. Rumors have been swirling for weeks now that Kuminga is frustrated with his situation. Sources close to the player suggest he feels undervalued, that he believes he's being unfairly blamed for the team's struggles while veterans get a pass for their own declining performance. And you know what? He might have a point. When Draymond Green has a bad game, we talk about how he's still valuable for his leadership and basketball IQ. When Kuminga has a bad game, suddenly he's not ready for prime time and needs to go back to the bench. That double standard is real, and it's understandable why a young player would be frustrated by it. The relationship between Kuminga and the Warriors has deteriorated to the point where separation seems not just possible, but inevitable. Now, here's where the story takes a fascinating, and this is where we need to talk about what's been happening across the league with other organizations. While the Warriors have been struggling to figure out their identity, other teams have been watching Kuminga's situation closely, recognizing that a player of his talent and age doesn't become available very often. There's one team in particular that's been monitoring this situation more closely than anyone else. A team that tried to acquire Kuminga during the offseason. A team that sees him as the perfect fit for what they're trying to build. And a team that's now in position to finally make a deal happen. Phoenix Suns have undergone a complete transformation this season. After years of trying to build a super team around aging stars and mortgaging their future for win now, moves that didn't pan out, they've finally embraced a different approach. They've hired Jordan O.T. as their head coach, one of the brightest young minds in basketball. And they've committed to building around Devin Booker with a younger, more athletic supporting cast. The early returns have been incredibly promising. Phoenix is playing faster, defending with more intensity, and developing young players in ways they never did under previous coaching regimes. But they're still missing that one piece. That versatile forward who can defend multiple positions, attack the rim, and grow alongside Booker as the foundation of their future. During the offseason, the Suns reportedly made an offer for Jonathan Kuminga that included multiple assets and future picks. The Warriors rejected it without much consideration, still believing they could compete for a championship with their current core and that Kuminga would be a crucial part of that equation. At the time, you could understand Golden State's position. Why would you trade a 23-year-old with all-star potential when you're trying to maximize the end of Stephen Curry's prime? But circumstances have changed dramatically since then. The Warriors are not a championship contender this season. Kuminga's relationship with the organization has soured, and the opportunity cost of holding on to him is starting to outweigh the benefits. Phoenix has one asset in particular that makes a deal suddenly feasible, and it's a player who's having a career year under Jordan O.T.'s system. Grayson Allen has been absolutely sensational for the Suns this year, averaging 18.5 points per game on ridiculous efficiency. He's shooting nearly 45% from three-point range on almost 9 attempts per game, both career highs by significant margin. He's also shown unexpected growth as a secondary playmaker and has been solid defensively within OT's scheme. Allen has gone from being a role player to being a legitimate starting caliber guard who could slot perfectly into what the Warriors need right now. And here's the kicker. He's exactly the type of player that would thrive next to Stephen Curry. Think about what Grayson Allen brings to the table from Golden State's perspective. He's a knockdown shooter who can space the floor and punish defenses for helping off him. He's got enough ball handling and playmaking ability to keep the offense moving when Curry is off the ball. He's scrappy on defense and understands how to play within a system without needing the ball in his hands to be effective. In many ways, he's a poor man's Klay Thompson. And I know that comparison might sting for Warriors fans, but it's accurate. Allen isn't going to be a Hall of Famer, but he could be the perfect complementary piece for a team that's trying to squeeze one more championship run out of their aging core. The fit makes too much sense to ignore. From Phoenix's perspective, landing Kuminga would be transformative. Imagine a lineup with Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Jonathan Kuminga, Dillon Brooks, and Mark Williams. That's a group with legitimate two-way potential, with multiple players who can create their own shot, with the defensive versatility to switch everything and guard multiple positions. Kuminga would have the freedom to attack the rim, to make mistakes without being immediately benched, to develop his game in an environment that's actually designed to maximize his strengths rather than asking him to fit into a rigid system built around veterans. Under Jordan Ote's coaching, with the opportunity to be a primary option rather than a complementary piece, Kuminga could finally reach the all-star potential that everyone saw when he was drafted. The Suns would also have the financial flexibility to extend Kuminga long-term, locking him in as a cornerstone alongside Booker for the next 6 or 7 years. That's the kind of move that defines a franchise's trajectory, that separates organizations who are just trying to compete from organizations who are building something sustainable. Phoenix has already shown they're committed to this new direction with their coaching hire and their roster construction. Adding Kuminga will be the ultimate validation of that philosophy, the move that announces to the league that the Suns are back as a legitimate threat for years to come. Now, there's one crucial detail about the timeline here that everyone needs to understand. Jonathan Kuminga cannot be traded until January 15th due to league rules about recently extended contracts. That means we're not talking about something that could happen tomorrow or next week. But what it does mean is that Phoenix needs to be working on this right now, building the framework for a deal, making sure they have all their pieces in place so that when January 15th arrives, they can move quickly before other teams enter the bidding. And based on everything I'm hearing from sources around the league, that's exactly what's happening. The Suns are laying the groundwork for a deal that would send Grayson Allen to Golden State in exchange for Jonathan Kuminga, with additional assets and picks likely involved to balance the value. The Warriors would also potentially receive some young prospects from Phoenix's roster. Players like Oso Ighodaro and Ryan Dunn could be included to sweeten the deal, giving Golden State some additional young talent to develop alongside their core. The Suns have second-round picks they can throw in as well, though those are less valuable in the grand scheme of things. What matters most is that both teams will be getting exactly what they need. Phoenix gets their young star forward to build around Booker. Golden State gets a veteran shooter who can help them compete now while Curry is still elite. It's the rare trade scenario where both sides legitimately benefit, where there's no clear winner or loser. Just two organizations with different timelines making moves that align with their respective goals. But here's what makes the situation so fascinating and so painful for Warriors fans. This trade only makes sense because Golden State has failed to develop Jonathan Kuminga properly. If the Warriors had given him consistent opportunities, clear expectations, and the patience to work through his mistakes, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Kuminga would be an emerging star in Golden State, the heir apparent to the dynasty, the player who ensures that the Warriors remain competitive even after Curry and Draymond retire. Instead, the organization has jerked him around for 3 years, benching him whenever things go wrong, sending mixed messages about his role, and ultimately creating a situation where trade becomes the best option for everyone involved. That's an organizational failure, plain and simple. Steve Kerr deserves some of the blame here. For all his brilliance as a championship coach, he's never been great at developing young players who don't immediately fit into his system. Kerr wants players who understand the nuances of his motion offense, who make the right read, who value ball movement over individual creation. That's a beautiful philosophy when you have a roster full of high IQ veterans. But it's suffocating for young players who need the freedom to make mistakes and learn from them. Kuminga needed a coach who would let him attack the rim 20 times a game, even if he turned it over 5 times. Instead, he got a coach who benched him for taking one bad shot. That's a fundamental mismatch between player and system, and it's why this relationship was probably doomed from the start. The broader question for Warriors fans is what this means for the franchise's future. If they trade Kuminga for Grayson Allen and some additional pieces, they're essentially admitting that the championship window is still open but narrowing rapidly. They're going all in on maximizing the next 2 or 3 years with Curry, accepting that once he retires or declines, they'll need to rebuild anyway. That's not necessarily the wrong decision, but it's a decision that comes with real consequences. Golden State won't have a young star to build around after Curry is gone. They'll be starting from scratch, hoping to draft well and develop the next generation of Warriors stars. For a fan base that's been spoiled by over a decade of excellence, that's going to be a painful transition. On the flip side, if the Warriors keep Kuminga and continue trying to make this work, they're probably not going to be good enough to win a championship anyway. The roster construction is flawed, the timeline doesn't align, and the relationship between player and organization is too damaged to repair. Sometimes the best move is recognizing when a situation isn't working and moving on before it gets worse. That's where we are with Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors. It's not what anyone wanted when he was drafted, but it's the reality we're facing now. For Phoenix Suns fans, this is the move they've been dreaming about since the offseason. Jonathan Kuminga represents everything they need: youth, athleticism, two-way potential, and the ability to grow alongside Devin Booker as the franchise moves into its next era. Landing him would be a massive win for Jordan OT and the front office. Validation that their new approach is working and that they're building something special in the desert. The Suns have been irrelevant for too long, bouncing between mediocrity and dysfunction, never quite figuring out how to build sustainable success. Kuminga could be the piece that changes everything, the player who helps them become a perennial playoff team and legitimate championship contender for the next decade. Trade won't be official until mid-January at the earliest, but all the pieces are in place for this to happen. Both teams have motivation to make a deal. The player wants out of his current situation. The acquiring team has the assets to make a competitive offer. And the timeline aligns perfectly with when Kuminga becomes trade eligible. Unless something dramatic changes in the next few weeks, I believe we're going to see Jonathan Kuminga in a Phoenix Suns uniform before the end of January. That's not speculation or wishful thinking. That's me reading the tea leaves based on everything I'm hearing from sources around the league and everything I'm seeing play out in real time. For Warriors fans, this is going to sting. Watching a young player with all-star potential leave because the organization couldn't figure out how to develop him properly is painful, especially when you know he's going to thrive in his next situation. But sometimes that's how the NBA works. Not every draft pick becomes a franchise cornerstone. Not every young player develops into a star on the team that drafted him. Sometimes the fit just isn't right, and the best thing for everyone is to move on and let the player flourish elsewhere. That's what's about to happen with Jonathan Kuminga. And as much as it hurts to admit, it's probably the right decision for all parties involved. So here's what I want to know from you, Dub Nation. Do you think the Warriors should trade Jonathan Kuminga for Grayson Allen and additional assets? Or do you believe they should keep him and continue trying to make this work despite all the dysfunction? What would you do if you were running the Warriors right now? And more broadly, what does this say about Golden State's ability to develop young talent and transition from one era to the next? I want to hear your honest thoughts in the comments below, because this is a decision that's going to define the next chapter of Warriors basketball one way or another. If you want to stay on top of every development with your Golden State Warriors, you need to subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this video with every Warriors fan you know. Here at Warriors News Fan Report, I'm dedicated to bringing you the most comprehensive analysis, the latest insider information, and the kind of content that goes deeper than surface-level reporting. This is where serious Warriors fans come for serious Warriors coverage. I'll see you in the next video with more updates on our beloved Dub Nation. Let's go, Warriors!